Just it was perfect.
Oh no! What do you want to comment on that? You're a big Stern fan.
No, I didn't want to comment.
No, I'm saying, am I accurate though?
No, you're absolutely accurate.
I'm accurate, right?
Yeah. It's different.
We thought he wanted to fucking say this entire time he wanted to be at the fucking table.
Well, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and that you're absolutely right. The entire time, that's all he's ever wanted to be. It makes so much sense. But the fact that he doesn't kind of acknowledge that is what makes it not as good as it used to be.
He's being what he made fun of, being phony.
You're phony. Yeah.
He's being phony. There's a chick who runs that show who no one's allowed to bring up on the air. That was Howard's biggest thing. Like when we went to Sirius, Scott Greenstein, who runs the place, who I actually do like, he's always been real nice to me, but Scott brought me and Fred and Gary up. Just the three of us. Specifically because he was right, I guess, and at the time we had the most influence guy-wise. Of course, Robin had the most, but as far as that guy talk thing where you bust balls on what happened on the air, and Scott did not want to become Tom Chiusano. He was deathly afraid of that, Greenstein. He goes, I can't be that guy, so when Howard, I don't want to be talked about on the air, so you guys got to help me with that, like steer him when he brings, and we go, yeah, and of course, we walk out and go, yeah, is he kidding? Is he kidding? First of all, Howard knew about that meeting. If he's listening, he might find that for the first time. He'd have had Scott thrown out of the fucking window. Talked about it. So the first day, Scott Greenstein up. Because that was Howard. Full disclosure. Full fucking transparency. Like you fucking people watching the campaigns, that word, transparency. That was Howard. That was the whole thing. You pull the curtain back on all the pretentious, pompous, phony bullshit. You say Dad has hairy legs. No, I'm saying, Chiusano and all these motherfuckers, how about Kevin Smith, the director, got mad at the show. Big fan, because he got goofed on about something. Well, the rules apply to you too, pal. Then don't call in. A lot of celebrities would get mad. Well, what show you been listening to? You get goofed on too, motherfucker. When I got that job, he was very nice to me in that honeymoon period, but I knew it was coming. Oh, it was coming. And then when he goofed, then you're in the club. Then it's like, now it's the show. So there's a woman, basically, who took over Gary's office. For years, Gary needed more room in that office. Everyone said no. A chick came in, a 34-year-old redhead came in, who basically read a book that Howard liked. And said, Howard, I get you. Fooled him. Howard had the most impressive brain I've ever met. He was like just a thinker beyond belief. He should be telling her how to live life. He's a billionaire. He started with nothing. He came from nothing on Roosevelt. The other celebrities, this is all you need to know. The other celebrities from Roosevelt, Long Island are Howard, Eddie Murphy, and Flavor Flav. I think Dr. J. Okay. You think it's a self-made kind of town? He's a brilliant guy. And this chick who read a book called Getting Things Done is telling him how to live his life, telling people that you can't talk to Howard unless you talk to me first. You need permission to talk to Howard. These are guys who worked with him for 20 years. You got to. Did you imagine? If someone told me that, first day I would go. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, first day, Mrs. Cunt. No, it's Artie. Is this Mrs. Cunt?
I met her when I did the wrap-up show last month, and she's hot.
Of course she's hot.
Fuck.
Of course she's hot. When a 34-year-old hot chick who's 20 years younger than Gary Delabate gets his office and makes it bigger.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah,
it's got to be difficult.
And may or may not be getting more money. And Gary, once again, gets emasculated.
Poor guy.
Gary's a great guy. And he's smart. Well, I thought he was a great guy. No, he's smart. He's smart. He's making a lot of money. Look, Gary, under constant pressure, produced the greatest radio show ever. Under constant fire. So Gary, gets a lot of credit in my book. And Gary was very instrumental in getting me that show. And it was a time I'd take a bullet for him. But everybody gets a little weird in the end, man. It's clear that Howard read that book and for some reason wanted the show to go in that direction. I admit I did not fit in that. I would never fit in that. So he had an awkward situation going on. How do I somehow get rid of Artie? Because I want to do a show where I can have Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow. And he kind of said, look, I've mastered this kind of radio. that Artie fits into, because Artie was one of my disciples. I went in there. I was a fan who got that job, which is why I was popular with fans, because I wasn't funnier than anybody trying to get that job or more talented. I was a guy who knew the show. I was a real fucking fan. My old man climbed roofs for a living. And he came in one day and he said, look, I was 13. He said, summer of 82. He said, you got to come to work with me the next day and climb roofs with me, because we're going to drive to each job and put NBC on. You got to hear this guy. He's hilarious. My father had that conversation with me. We've bonded on two things, me and my old man: the Yankees and the Howard Stern show. Think about that. When he was a quadriplegic after falling off one of those roofs, the only thing that made him laugh was the Stern show. And I would say out loud to him, God, I'd love to be a comic and be on that show. We'd listen to Gilbert do the news. About 8 years later, I was sitting there with Gilbert doing the news. My dad was dead. It's an American story. That's why these guys, that's the documentary. They like that story. It is kind of crazy. What a coincidence. We sent away, we had an auction for my old man to raise money. He was a quadriplegic. To raise money, we were broke. We were on welfare. We couldn't sue anybody because my father stole the ladder he fell off of. A lawyer was smelling money. We fell off a house that had no homeowner's insurance. Old guy had 200 grand to his name. The lawyer said he was a shark dealer. He goes, listen, we'll get the money from him. My mother goes, that's all the money the guy has in the world. She goes, I'm not doing that. I'm not suing him. And my mother was that kind of person. I'm not putting that kind of karma out there. That's terrible. He goes, we'll sue the ladder company. They always have a lot of money. And my father looked at me and I looked at my mother. I said, who's going to tell him? I went over to the lawyer and said he stole the ladder. It says Bell Atlantic on it. The ladder said Bell Atlantic on it. The lawyer, it was so funny, like out of a movie. The lawyer calmly closed his briefcase and said, good luck, guys. We were on welfare. So we had an auction. We sent away to, we fucking wrote notes to all local celebrities, the Giants, the Jets, the Yankees, and the Howard Stern show. One person replied, Howard. They sent us a 92.3 K-Rock satin jacket. And this is 1987. I was 19. The same year I tried stand-up for the first time. And we auctioned it off. Got good money for it. And my cousin had it on tape. She taped all the shows on a cassette. I'm 19 and we hear this. Howard goes, talks about us on the air. Gary said, by the way, that quadriplegic guy, your jacket, and he sold it. Howard said, does that guy think if he wears it, he's going to walk again? We were part of the show. Wow. He didn't know he was talking about a guy who was going to, make him happy and then ruin his life. Think about it. I couldn't have dreamed of that job, because who would have known it was even a job? Who knew Jackie would quit the show the same exact year a sitcom I was on got canceled, so I was free to come home, blah, 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 blah. The planets were aligned. And I got a job as a co-host. My father, I've said this as a joke, but it's dead true. My father would have been less proud of me if I was a U.S. Senator. It would have been a dream of his, more than mine. I sat 3 feet from the greatest guy to ever do radio for 8.5 years. I learned a lot from the guy. See how I'm ignoring Mario? You go away from the weakness. No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying, I'm busting chops here, but come on. This guy's a genius. What did this chick have to where Gary gets his office taken away? I couldn't have done it. So Howard had to figure out, because I was kind of popular with the fans, because I was one of them. How do I get rid of Artie? Because he doesn't fit in to the Gwyneth Paltrow show. And I don't want to fit in, is the point. I love being an outlaw. I wanted to be Kinnison and you. So, I still plan on living till 49. Kinnison checked out at 38. I'm going broke here. No. But, whatever. Dave gets it. He's a big fan. He understands it. It's a crazy story. It's kind of a cool American story. We were on welfare, and, I got into comedy. And, got my mother out of it. And the show that made me, go into the stratosphere as, as far as I'm going to get ever, to the B- list, was Stern.
Besides knowing you before that and after,
right.
in between, when we, weren't acquainted at the time.
Right.
You really I know I've told you this on the podcast when we first started, you really became my favorite character on that show. And when you would be out,
right,
it was heartbreaking.
Completely
for me.
different
I'm
show.
talking about like just when you were sick one day, not just after.
Right.
It was like,
well, that's
this
like
stinks. Like it was like I was really disappointed.
Well, because Howard was dealing with a guy who actually, like, you know, he literally raised. Like, he literally raised me and taught me how to be funny. And in some parts of the show, I could actually be better than him as the student.
Yeah.
Because I did what he did.
Well, plus
as he changed.
You just also, it added this extra element to the show that
you know
was
what it was?
lacking, which was a guy that had life experience.
Yeah, right.
Where Howard did not have. He got married young. He clearly had a bad high school experience.
It was true blue collar.
True blue collar.
Right. I was stuffing kids in the locker, not the other way. No, I wasn't. I had a great, I loved high school. I loved it.
Right.
Because I did nothing but fool around.
So you had these two weirdos that, you know, like really you don't know, and then you have a regular guy on who knows how to make a joke and craft it, unlike Jackie, who was really, for me, a bag of shit.
Well, Jackie,
I know you like him.
No, I like, but here's the thing.
It didn't work for me at all.
Here's the thing. Jackie fit into the narrative of that show, getting goofed on and to write jokes.
Well, that was the only good part for me.
Okay, it was great.
Was when he got goofed on.
To write jokes in Howard's voice, though, he really was amazing at that.
That's true, but see,
I couldn't do that.
You didn't replace Jackie. They just added a third person onto the show. That's the way I look at it.
Benji does Jackie's job. Benji's a guy who writes great jokes that Howard uses a lot, who gets on the air sometimes and gets goofed on, and that's exactly what Jackie did.
Yeah.
I write, partly because I sucked at writing jokes, I am the only guy before or since.
Yep.
And look, as a comic, people know I'm a humble guy.
And they've left that chair open.
I don't brag about stuff.
Completely open.
That's what I have in
Jimmy
life.
comes in.
Well, that's what I have in my life. The one thing I can brag about is I'm the only other guy in the history of the fucking Howard Stern show whose mic was on the whole time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of confidence. He's putting a show that he loves in the hand. I could say whatever I want. I could ruin stuff. And for about 8 years, before the heroin completely took over, look, the chemistry was so good, I could get laughs sleeping during caffeine. I knew when to snore at the right time.
It's my favorite thing. And sometimes when that would happen, I couldn't wait to see the video, you know. I mean, you also made the videos great, too.
Howard created a world that I fit into perfectly because he raised me on comedy. So it's kind of like your teacher going, well, what are you doing? But you're not doing what you invented anymore. You're being like everybody else. You know how disappointing that is?
It's just, in a way, that's what the show needed to continue, too, because, you know, it was been 15 years already.
But here's the thing. It continued. It's fine. Like, some people have an apocalyptic view of the show. The show is still doing very well. Here's the thing. Here's why I was out and why he wanted to, I'm Tom Hagen. You're out, Tom. Here's why. Howard mastered that type of radio that he invented. He also, though, by the way, started to realize that he was incredibly skillful in interviewing people. And I knew that from the first month I was on the show when he interviewed Paul McCartney about the concert for 9/11. McCartney came in with Harvey Weinstein on the phone, yapping every 2 seconds. And it's the best interview with Paul McCartney I ever heard in my life. And I started to realize the show I'm on, okay, I'm in the big leagues now, like Mad TV, whatever. Mad TV, SNL was the majors, Mad TV was like, this. I got in Dirty Work with Norm. We wanted it to be the Sailor movies. It wasn't. I'm proud of all those things, but it was always, when I got on Stern, now I'm on the Yankees. A beetle is 2 feet from it, and 20. I remember this stat at some ad person who did advertising audits for radio came in and told us that in around 2003 or 4, like my prime of the show that I loved what I was doing on the show, in my opinion, at 9:15 a.m. New York time, there were 14.7 million people listening to us. Wow. Everything I uttered, like I'll be at the Funny Bone Thursday, a plug, I have an album out, a movie, whatever, or you being funny. You utter that into a microphone on West 57th Street, and a guy in Seattle is hearing it going to work. That's incredible. And I'm saying whatever I want. So that's why I want to make sure I'm not being disrespectful to Howard in the sense, I'm disappointed in a hero of mine and a guy who was a friend of mine, who I love. I love him. I think like, in other words, he had to have a show where these A-list people came in so he could do those interviews. He said, I'm good at interviewing Paul McCartney. But with Artie here and the Tits and this and that and Sal and Richard getting naked, the Sibian, ain't happening. Nicholson, Brand, they're not coming in. Ellen's not coming in. Lady Gaga's not coming in. But I know I can do a show, and I'll announce it to the world. Artie's gone. Heroin did his work for him. I'm not saying he was happy about it, but I know he was genuinely concerned for my health. But in a way, it's like, okay, I wish you well, man, but now I'm off to interview Lady Gaga in a respectful way. If Brad Pitt wants to come in, if someone said, I'm coming in, but you can't talk about broads, Howard said, no, I'd rather interview fucking High Pitch Eric. Now it's different. Or I'd want to hear Artie about doing cocaine in a pig account, some shit in his pants. I'd rather hear that. Now he doesn't. That's gone. He mastered that. Now he wants to go, okay, whatever Brad Pitt wants, whatever such and such wants, I will adhere to those rules because I can do a brilliant interview. And that's what he's doing. The show's interviews are brilliant. I'm not taking away his talent. He's still that guy. But it's just, for me, you ask me why, it is going to be weird. They're going to do this documentary on my life. And this guy was so important to me. For a decade, I was on that show. The biggest radio show ever. He did everything for me. And he will not even speak to them. I have to explain that. On the documentary, you're going to hear a version of what I'm saying here right now because I'm going to be honest. And it deserves an like someone like Dave Juskow, who's a big fan and a comic and gets it. Well, if he listened to this documentary, it would be a disservice to him. Like, wait a minute. Why isn't Howard interviewed? There's a glaring omission here. I'm going to have to explain this. You don't think, and I'm being a big enough man to be honest. Yeah, that kind of hurts me a little bit.
And we don't know for sure.
Or any of the people
maybe
that
I'm a
are
pussy.
on the show, they're not going to be able to interview.
Not allowed to.
Maybe it'll work out.
Unless the show's off the... I know for a fact, I've said this on the air before, I know for a fact that they were gotten together. Anybody who talks to anybody who used to work on the show, not just me, is fired.
Wow.
If Howard finds out, Gary got people together supposedly and said, if you're caught interacting, like having a conversation with, going to dinner with someone who used to work on the show, the amount of people that entails, you're fired. That's not the guy I worked for. Not the guy I grew up listening to. It's not the guy I worked for. Something.
You got that right. I mean, he hasn't fired anybody. He was known for not firing anybody, even if they were incompetent.
And if he tried to leave, though, here's the thing. It was like leaving the mafia.
Yeah,
not one person,
like that.
think about it, not one person left that show clean.
No.
It was an argument, bitter to the end. You're an asshole for leaving me.
I mean, you're right. Billy West.
Stuttering John, Casey Armstrong. Did you ever hear
They're
any of them
never
again? Scott Einziger from the show.
Only if somebody calls and mentions it, and that's it.
And he's passive
The one
aggressive.
good thing I was going to say about you leaving, where he seems, at least on the air, not to be bitter about it, is that when Jackie left, he's brought up points. He goes, "This is the day that Jackie left. I marked it in my calendar because it made me so happy."
He always said it, right?
Yeah.
No, it's a different time. Look, the way I left, first of all, heroin it was so tragic.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible that I put all of my friends and family through that, where people who care for you have to go through that. And I think he cared for me, and he did go through that, and I think he was bitter about it. And when he saw I was better, he was like, okay, now I'm angry. And he also has the ability to cut people out of his life. And I saw him do it with every person systematically who left that show, even if they were going for greener pastures. His best friend when I got on that show was Scott Einziger, the executive producer of the show. Great guy. He went on to produce The Amazing Race, won Emmys for it, made a lot of money. But he had to move to LA and leave the show. And he asked Howard for his blessing. Howard, in typical fashion at dinner, he said good luck with everything. On the air, skewered him. With all his fucking minions, like Ralph called in to fucking pile on, and Robin, why is Scott leaving? He's leaving because he's got an amazing opportunity. Instead of saying, you're my buddy, good luck, that sounds great.
He takes it all personally.
Right, you're the asshole, why are you leaving me? He goofs on him. And then when he has success, writes it off.
Sad.
You're right. I guess in a way it is. But on paper, the shallowest of people will go, look, Artie's a billionaire with 5 houses and a beautiful wife, and Beth is a doll. He's got wonderful children. Howard, I've said the best thing you can say about anybody is good parenting, and clearly that's the case. from what I saw, those kids are just wonderful people, classy, and him and his wife did a great job there. No Paris Hiltons in the bunch. It's hard to do. 3 for 3.
Yeah.
I always say he didn't have another kid because he looked at me and said, "What if I have already?" So there's he's a winner in life. He's great, but I say I know the guy. The anger he has, there's a sadness up there, where he feels, I think, a little alone still. He's still that nerdy kid in high school that doesn't talk. His parents, a great story. Like, he's got all that stuff in his head and it came out and he ran the world. Like a fucking steam freighter coming at you. And anyone who got in the way of that was in trouble. A la the fucking zookeeper in Philadelphia. You're in the wrong place, wrong time, brother.
Oh, God. Did you see the article in the Post today about him and the cats?
About Howard?
It's right. It's right in that paper right there.
What's it say? No.
It just talks about how, it's
Howard,
got a big picture of Beth.
I know.
And then she's like, when he comes home grouchy, he just goes into the room full of cats and he comes out and he's a different person.
Okay, imagine if another
Exactly
DJ.
what you're talking about.
Imagine if another DJ had that article in the Post. Imagine if Imus had that article, and it was 2003.
Exactly.
And here comes Gilbert for the news.
Oh, God.
We might still be on the air goofing about it. We would have read the article word for word and goof for everything, with Fred playing sound effects, Robin laughing,
Yep.
Gary producing, me talking. It was fun. But look, he's 62 years old. Be happy, be that. But Dave asked a good question. I'm trying to explain to you because it's going to come up. I don't think Dave said anything could happen. He probably will not speak on a documentary about me. I got to explain it. I'm going to have to. I owe it to the people to explain it. So this is the explanation. That's what I'm telling you. But
There's never been a documentary from anybody who's left before. And no, you're the highest powered person to have left.
well, I mean, listen, I still have a career, thank God, because
That's the other part, too.
I
A high profile one, especially after the HBO show comes
Let
out.
me tell you something. That is, I am learning firsthand. For the first time, besides Howard, I'm in the Yankees of show business, regular show business, HBO and Apatow.
Yeah.
That is,
It's a big deal. It's a comeback.
You get some of that Apatow stank on your down low. Jesus Christ, I'm getting offers for a lot of. I am busy with stuff, and this is the latest thing. So the Apatow that press is about to start. By the way, promos are going to start. I'm going to be in promos all over HBO. Life's about to get exciting again for A. Lang. Now look at him. A lot of times it ends in failure. I'm prepared for that too. But you know what? At 50, if this is the last hurrah, great. I've had a lot of fun. People think about the tragedies, but I want this documentary, if it's done right, they're going to see that, no, I mostly had a blast. The night we had the bullet of cocaine, and I was speeding in reverse down 7th Avenue South, making John Benjamin, the future voice of Archer, cry, and your beautiful girlfriend at the time, Jen. Went on to marry a much more successful man.
Yep.
And the great Dave Juskow, who I just met, my friend, we're laughing, young, doing comedy in New York. That's what I remember. The tragic stuff, of course, I've told the stories. People are. I had a blast, and I'm still having a blast. I hate when people are like, "Are you okay? Everything fine?" Yeah. I have friends who have the audacity, right before they go to a fucking christening at their wife's sister's brother-in-law's house, where I could sit and scratch my nuts and look at the check for $60,000 I got the night before, and have every vice on the planet if I want to. They have to, Artie, me and my wife, we always pray that you find happiness.
.com.
That's